Hello everyone, this is Sean Hansen of savagesports, here to talk to you about one of my favorite times of the year, the NCAA Men's Basketball Tournament, and more specifically, my bracket. Now, I am no basketball expert, but I do follow it from time to time, and I do have some knowledge. Now, I tend to pick more upsets than the average person because I like to be different and root for the underdog. Of course, I will only pick an upset if I really feel it, which does happen, a lot actually. After all, this is all just for fun, and I don't really intend much out of it other than, just have fun. But anyways, let's just jump right into it. Now, I have titled my bracket The Brace, because when I hear the term bracket, I think of braces and orthodontics, and a bracket is part of a brace, so I always give it that name. Now, for the Midwest region, I only really have one upset, which is Michigan State over Duke in the Sweet 16, which really isn't too much of an upset because many experts do have Michigan State. I also have Mizzou over Colorado State, but that's really it. Anyways, this region will ultimately come down to Louisville and Michigan State, two very talented and deserving teams, and I ultimately have Peyton Siva, Russ Smith, and Rick Pitino winning it over Tom Izzo and Michigan State. For the West region, I have a few upsets, but really not too many. One is Belmont over Arizona. Belmont is a very talented scoring team that many predicted as a sleeper pick. I really do feel this upset, so I will go with them. In fact, I really did think about them as a Final Four team, but at this point that's unrealistic because after facing Arizona, they'll likely face New Mexico, and this is a really bad mismatch. Belmont is a seriously undersized team and rarely plays any players over 6'7". They'll have a tough time containing 7-footer Alex Kirk, and so it is unlikely they'll get past New Mexico. Also, the hardest pick for me was between Wisconsin and Ole Miss. I actually really like both teams. They're both red hot and both have Sweet 16 potential. In fact, I do have Ole Miss winning that game in another bracket, but here I ultimately had to go with Wisconsin because they're the more talented team and more likely to get past Gonzaga in the Sweet 16, which I actually do have, as you can see. In the end, this region is going to come down to Ohio State and Wisconsin. And I have Ohio State and Thad Matta taking it because they're just way too hot right now. And I just don't see anybody in the region taking them down. For the East region, I do have a number 1 versus number 2 in the Elite 8 matchup, as you can see. But if you take a look in the lower right-hand corner, you'll notice I have an 11 versus 14 in the round of 32. I like Bucknell over Butler because they're a smart basketball team that rarely turns the ball over. I really believe they can take down a Butler team coached by Brad Stevens, who brought them to the Final Four twice. Also, I have Davidson over Marquette because they are a veteran team who is really dangerous. Plus, I just don't think Marquette is all that great this year. Out of those two, I have Bucknell winning and going to the Sweet 16 because I feel like it's their year. But they will lose to the extremely talented Miami team that's been hot all year round. In the end, it will be Miami versus Indiana in this region, and I see Indiana and Victor Oladipo taking it. Finally, the South region. Now, the picks I have in this region will be sure to surprise you. Boom! Probably the craziest pick I have in this bracket is South Dakota State over Michigan. This is all just gut feeling. As actually, I don't think I mentioned to you guys that that pretty much this is all gut feeling whenever I do these picks. I mean, it's probably like that for a lot of people, but for me, it's very much so. Because, as I said, I am no basketball expert. In fact, all I really know about South Dakota State is that they have Nate Wolters, one of the top scorers in the nation, and that they have a very dangerous team. But the thing is, Michigan has not done well down the stretch, and most of their young players have been inconsistent of late. We all know that Trey Burke will be good, but what about his supporting cast? Coming into the Big Ten tournament, I saw Michigan as a possible Final Four team, but now, not so much. Also, another shocker I have here is number 1 Kansas losing to North Carolina in the round of 32. I think North Carolina will relish being an underdog this one time because I just feel it. And I feel like they will take down a Kansas team led by Ben McLemore, potential top 5 pick in the NBA draft. However, they will lose out to VCU. In fact, this is a VCU team that I feel like is better than the Final Four team 2 years ago. They will beat a very good Georgetown team to once again reach the Final Four. Georgetown Georgetown is a better team than VCU, but they always tend to disappoint me in the tournament, and I just don't feel like they could make it. I mean, this is probably farther than they've ever been like the last couple of years, but still, they're not going to be in the Final Four because I believe in Shaka Smart and VCU. One last thing, San Diego State on this bracket is my team. In fact, I'd like to mention there are 2 SDSU teams on here. There's San Diego State and South Dakota State. And San Diego State is my team because I do go to the school. And I feel good about their chances against Oklahoma. But they will have a tough time against Otto Porter and Georgetown. So I will have to pick Georgetown. And finally, the Final Four. The teams I have chosen once again are Louisville, Ohio State, Indiana, and VCU. I was surprised that some guy on ESPN had the same picks as me for the Final Four. I don't remember who it is, but I know I chose his picks before I heard him. Anyways, Louisville versus Ohio State will be the game of the year. I have Louisville coming out on top because Peyton Siva is a beast. And I have VCU over Indiana. I mentioned that I believe in Shaka Smart, right? Anyways, it's their year. They will beat Indiana, who started off the year as number 1 and spent more time than anyone else as number 1. But they will come short. In the end, Louisville will be too much for VCU and Shaka Smart and will win it all. A Hall of Fame year for Rick Pitino and his squad. Once again, thank you for watching. Subscribe, rate, comment, and don't judge too much. Like I said, I'm no expert, and this is all for fun. Okay, bye.